You guys, I am just so ready for 2019 already. I actually start getting really anxious this close to the new year. I just want to put up my calendar, start my new planner, set my reading goals, and I am just like ready to go. Hi everyone, my name is Holly, and in today's video I am going to be doing my December wrap up. The final wrap up of the year, which is oh so sad, but like I said before, I'm ready for 2018 already. This month got away from me a little bit, and it's made me realize something. So I barely read at all the first half of December. I actually only read one book, and the rest I read in the second half, and I seem to do that a lot, and I really want to change that for next year. It just makes me like really scramble to hurry up and get the books I need to finish by the end of the month. But let's go ahead and start with the very first book that I did finish, and that was The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I do have a spoiler-free review for this on my channel, so you can go check that out if you want to for my more in-depth thoughts. I also talked about this book in my best books of the year video too, so I'll try to keep this wrap up short. This is a very dark adult fantasy that I'm sure you've seen around everywhere. It's a very hyped up book for a very good reason, because I loved it even though it did have some soggy bits. It's basically all about kids in a military academy in a feudal Asian inspired fantasy setting. Sort of like Harry Potter. I mean, I definitely noticed some Harry Potter influences here for sure. I said this before, but in this book there is a very odd and whimsical professor who has a class at the very top of the academy, and then in Harry Potter there's Professor Trelawney, who is also very odd and whimsical, who has a class at the very top of Hogwarts. Very similar, but it's really hard to describe. It's very fresh and original. Rin's entire initial training at the military academy, basically like the first half of the book, is such beautiful storytelling, and about halfway through the book things pivot in this very abrupt and kind of baffling way. It becomes a totally different story and a totally different vibe, as our characters are very bluntly thrown into war. All of the characters that we essentially get to know in the first half of the book mostly just disappear, and a new cast of characters just kind of spring up all of a sudden, and I found it a little bit hard to care for those characters because we really don't get to know them that well. The magic system in this book though is so freaking cool. It's based around summoning the spirits of gods into the world. It's so fascinating, and the lore and the history in this story is so large and can definitely be expanded upon, and I cannot wait to learn even more about this world in book 2, which comes out next year, which I'm really excited about. In the end, I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. I absolutely adored it, and I still struggle with that rating. I definitely loved the second half far more than the first half. The next book that I read was Romanov by Nadine Brandis. This book was sent to me for review, and it comes out on May 7th of next year, and it's an Anastasia retelling. Now, the tragedy of the Romanovs has always fascinated me. Rumor has it that Anastasia and her brother Alexei, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but basically her little brother, had survived the rebellious revolution to overthrow their family's reign when their bodies were never discovered along with the rest of the family, not until 2007 actually. Well, Nadine Brandis ends up making up their own fates with a twist of magic. Now there's a lot of Russian words I don't think I'm going to be able to say correctly, so if I offend anyone, I'm so sorry, but more than half of this book takes place during the events of the family being imprisoned inside of the Impative house. Oh god, this is just gonna be cringe. But they were imprisoned inside a house by the Red Army. They starved, and they were dealt with severe punishments if acted out of term. The author does add some romance to these scenes, which does add a bit of flavor, even though I don't like romance. And I did find such a hard time picturing the house that the Romanovs are living in. Pretty much anything I had trouble picturing. There's not really a whole lot of description. I really would have liked a more thorough kind of blueprint to picture. I just found the atmosphere very flat. Now, the magic in the story appears as spellmasters, and the Red Army want them extinct. These magical characters use what is called ink in the story, where they paint it on themselves wherever they need healing, or they even drink it to speak out a spell, which is really interesting. In this case, Anastasia wants to learn how to become a spellmaster, and she ends up smuggling an ancient doll inside of her corset, pretty much like the entire book. She's carrying this doll, which she uses to heal her younger brother who has hemophilia. I thoroughly enjoyed this book, even with its flaws. The ending definitely broke me to pieces, which is to be expected with a pretty historically accurate novel. Nadine Brandes definitely left me even more intrigued about the Romanov family, and I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Bone Parish, and I don't have the physical copy of it. I read this as an ebook, and this one is really interesting. This book is set in modern day, and it's all about this drug that people are becoming addicted to, and it's not just a normal drug. It's made of grinding human bones into dust, and when the user is introduced to this drug into their bloodstream, the person basically becomes that person. So say you digest a rock star's bone dust, you then imagine yourself as this rock star. You feel it, you live it, you see it momentarily. This has obviously become very profitable for the mob-like family that we're following in this story, who have created this illegal business venture. But this criminal underworld obviously leads to some violence and a lot of trouble, hence where the plot comes in. I really enjoyed the story, but I do wish that the plot had a little more bite to it. It was just your typical linear plot line of tragedy and then revenge between two opposing groups. So in a way it became pretty predictable toward the end, and I really wish that the drug elements were used in a more creative way to add something fresh to these mob-like tropes. But the plot twist that we do get is done with some flair. The artwork in this truly sets the mood. It's really dark and gloomy and kind of has this noir feeling, and as you're reading it, the blues and grays give you this feeling like you're reading something you're not supposed to, like you're trying to conceal something the entire time. But yeah, I did really enjoy it. I ended up giving it a 3.75 out of 5 stars. It's so close to a 4 though. But yeah, definitely check this one out. I believe it comes out sometime next year, maybe mid next year. And the final book that I read this month, and was literally like my main goal to finish, was The Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. I finally finished the first trilogy of the First Law universe, and it feels oh so good. I can't really talk a whole lot about this book because it is the 3rd book in that first trilogy, but just know that it was so good. Joe Abercrombie's characters and storytelling never cease to amaze me. He does a full circle and completes the story arc so beautifully. This is a very satisfying and thrilling conclusion, and I'm so excited to delve into the second trilogy, the first one being Best Served Cold, which I actually find it very hard to not pick up next. Like, I really just want to delve into it because Joe Abercrombie is actually coming out with a new series set in this same world later next year, so I'll have plenty of time to finish off the next trilogy, but I can't wait to do that. I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. It was so good. And that is it for the final wrap up of the year. I hope you guys enjoyed. Tell me down below what books that you read this month because I would love to know. Go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up for me, and don't forget to subscribe. I upload videos every single week. Follow me on Instagram at HollyHeartsBooks and on Twitter at HollyNiece. And until we meet again, happy reading.